Mr. President, thank you for the privilege of speaking here tonight. Distinguished members of this House, ladies and gentlemen, it is truly an honor to address you all. And thank you so much for joining us for a debate that at its very core touches something far deeper than geopolitics. It's a conversation about loss, about memory, and about the kind of worlds that we choose to build from tragedy. Now, as someone who has devoted my career to human rights, to accountability, and to the dignity of victims of war and violence, I approach this particular motion with a profound sense of responsibility. Because tonight, we are not discussing an abstract idea or a theoretical construct. We're discussing a human tragedy. And how we speak about a human tragedy matters. Because words are powerful. Our words can shape understanding, they can shape memory, and they can shape the truth that we choose to carry forward. And it is for that reason that I believe that the words of this motion tonight should give everyone in this chamber a pause. The conspiratorial framing of this motion sends a deeply troubling message to the world that this House, known for its rigor, its integrity, and its respect for truth, is willing to let conspiracy replace evidence and speculation stand in for reason. And it is for that reason and out of respect for the lives lost that I rise to oppose this motion tonight. Now, before I proceed with my arguments, it falls onto me the duty and indeed the honor of introducing our guest speakers this evening. First, we have Secretary Chertoff, who served as the United States Secretary of Homeland Security under President George W. Bush. He is also a former federal judge and a former federal prosecutor. Secretary Chertoff, it's a tremendous honor and a privilege to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Next, we are pleased to be hosting Peter Bergen, one of the world's leading national security experts, and one of the very few journalists that have actually sat face to face with the perpetrator of the 9/11 attack and interviewed him. So he brings a very unique perspective to this debate. And finally, we have Michael Leiter, the former director of the United States National Counterterrorism Center, a role at the very heart of U.S. intelligence and national security decision-making. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And Mr. President, these are our distinguished line of speakers, and they are indeed most welcome. "9/11 was a tragedy that claimed nearly 3,000 innocent lives in a matter of hours. Families shattered, communities traumatized, a world shaken. And even to this day, more than 2 decades later, millions across the globe still live in its aftershock. And when a tragedy of this magnitude strikes, the world desperately searches for answers. We reach for explanations. We fill in gaps. We connect the dots, and we build all kinds of theories to make sense of something so unbearable. That instinct is deeply human, and I honor it. It comes from pain, from confusion, and the desire to understand what feels incomprehensible. But tonight, our responsibility is different. We are not in the realm of instinct or speculation or emotional theory building. We're at Oxford, a chamber built on intellectual discipline, a space where precision and language matters, where speaking with accuracy matters, and where evidence matters. Had this motion been framed in a way that it asked us to examine America's policies after this tragedy, or to debate its decisions, the missteps, or the consequences that followed, we would welcome that debate. Instead, this motion makes a far more sweeping, a far more radical claim. This motion alleges that America has weaponized this tragedy, therefore alleging intent. Now that word, weaponized, ladies and gentlemen, deeply troubles me. Weaponized is not a casual word, it's not a rhetoric, it's not a metaphor. The word weaponize, we use it to describe some of the gravest patterns of abuse in human rights. To weaponize something is to allege purposefulness, intentionality, deliberate design, and the calculated orchestration of human suffering. So if the proposition wishes to defend that language of this gravity, then the burden falls entirely upon them to prove intent, as this motion requires. But they cannot. They will speak to you about the wars, they will speak to you about the policies, about consequences, as the previous speaker so eloquently did, but none of that really answers the question at the core of this motion, the allegation of intent. Because across 24 years, every credible, independent inquiry, from 9/11 Commission to engineering investigations to intelligence assessments across allied nations, they've reached the same conclusion. There's no evidence of internal orchestration. 24 years. None. So this motion therefore asks you to ignore evidence, to abandon reason, and to embrace instead a conspiratorial theory that collapses under its own weight. This motion asks you to believe that the United States, in 2001, the world's most powerful military, the world's largest economy, the leading power with NATO, and the dominant global superpower, somehow needed to take the life of nearly 3,000 of its own civilians, point not taken, in the most brutal, in the most public way imaginable, in its own soil, in its own city. For what rational purpose? To achieve goals that it already possessed? Why would a superpower, at the height of its influence, a nation with unrivaled military reach, with more allies, wealth, and leverage than any state in modern history, choose to devastate, literally, ladies and gentlemen, devastate its own economy, shatter its global credibility, cripple its aviation industry, and plunge its own population into grief? And even if one were to imagine such a scenario, the logistics alone doesn't add up. A conspiracy of this scale would have required the flawless, silent coordination of over thousands of individuals, intelligence officers, military personnel, airport staff, can I have some water? Engineers, first responders, journalists. So are we really truly here to believe that every one of these speakers perfectly stayed silent for 24 years? Ladies and gentlemen, governments struggle to keep a single email confidential, let alone a multi-agency mass casualty conspiracy of this magnitude. So, esteemed members of this House, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I ask you to please vote against this motion. Not to defend any government. I'm not doing that. I'm only here to defend a principle that truth matters. I'm a lawyer. I strongly believe in evidence, I believe in truth, and I believe in the moral weight of words. This chamber is not a home for conspiracy. It's a home for evidence. It's a chamber for reason and for dignity. Nearly 3,000 innocent lives was taken from us. Ladies and gentlemen, their memories deserve respect and honesty, not exaggeration and not distortion, as this motion is doing tonight. So I ask you please stand for what this chamber at its best embodies, which is evidence, integrity, and truth. Thank you very much.